India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to Russia's President Vladimir Putin over a phone call today, and he shared his insights from his recent trip to Ukraine, where he met Volodymyr Zelensky. He also reiterated India's stance on the Russia-Ukraine war. The call came just a day after Modi spoke to US President Joe Biden about his visit to Ukraine. My colleague Aditya Rajkol now joins us live from the newsroom. Aditya, a historic trip, first by India's Prime Minister in a good 3 decades, and a historic phone calls, if I may, after that.
Well, absolutely, Krishna. A very interesting phone call between President Putin and Prime Minister Narendra Modi comes just days after Prime Minister Modi visited Ukraine, the first Indian Prime Minister to do so. And a conversation about peace, about stability, about negotiations and, some kind of efforts that could conclude this long-lasting war. What we also know is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi told Putin that efforts should be made for peaceful negotiations among all the stakeholders. This is what India has stood by ever since the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, that this is not an era of war. Solutions cannot be found on battlefields, and certainly there needs to be more aggressive diplomacy and negotiations that lead to long-lasting peace. This also comes just merely hours after Prime Minister Modi spoke to Biden, and the regional and global issues were discussed, including what's been happening in West Asia, and most importantly, the Russia-Ukraine war. Globally, we've seen several countries also comment about India's role in this, and how India is a rare country which has good relations both with Russia and Ukraine and can play a pivotal role in peacemaking between these two countries. It's also a time when there's a fatigue and exhaustion setting in this war. Unfortunate escalation also from both sides. A lot of civilians also becoming casualties in this unfortunate war. So we'll have to wait and watch what kind of role will New Delhi play in this negotiation. There is a conversation along trade and business that is going to happen in Russia in a few weeks from now, where India will be participating as well. Will we see some diplomacy on the sidelines? Perhaps time will tell.
Right, Aditya, but what is important to be noted here is that India is striking that balance, and both Putin and Zelensky are there in person speaking to India's Prime Minister as India strikes this balance between Russia and Ukraine.
Absolutely. India has, can't really say a balance, but certainly made a stand very clear, which is very unlike stand taken by most of the countries in Europe or the Western countries, really. India, from the very beginning of the war, as I said, has said that, we want peace. We will not stand by one axis or the other. We will not join one camp against the other. And there's been a lot of lecturing also against India because of the stand that India has taken. But last year you saw at the G20 in Bali, Prime Minister, last year in fact, said that this is not an era of war. Last year at the New Delhi Bharat Mandapam G20 summit, Prime Minister was able to have a consensus on the Russia-Ukraine issue at the G20 declaration, final communique that was issued, and that was a huge development. And ever since at that time, India has been trying to have some kind of a peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, and has urged all stakeholders to come on one platform. So certainly it's a very important development that there are conversations happening directly between Prime Minister Narendra Modi with leaders of both Ukraine and Russia at a time when the conflict is seeing escalation. There are missile and rocket attacks and drone attacks happening both in Russia and Ukraine as of now. But yes, New Delhi has stood by its stand. Prime Minister Narendra Modi very famously said that you can't say that we are balanced or we are not taking a stand. We are taking a stand, and our stand from the very beginning has been for peace. So we are not neutral, we are for peace, and peace is important at a time when this global conflict is only extending forward. And it's time perhaps to conclude this, and perhaps there could be further talks and negotiations in the coming weeks that could result in some result-oriented conclusion of this war.